Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the next in our unbelievably lengthy and interminable series of miniature masterpieces, because there is no limit to the number of miniature masterpieces that we're talking about. And boy, have I got a masterpiece, which is also a miniature, less than 2 minutes long, about 1 minute and 48 seconds. I am speaking of that absolutely joyous, fabulous, inimitable classics, Leroy, however you want to do it, Anderson's The Typewriter. And I have it on this terrific disc of Leroy Anderson favorites, performed by the Utah Symphony under Maurice Abravanel on the Vanguard label. This is one of those classic discs that everyone in the universe ought to own just because they should. The music is so delightful. Let's talk for a bit about Leroy Anderson. He called it Leroy. I call him Leroy, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is this. Anderson was born in Massachusetts, and he spent most of his life in Connecticut. Yes, in Connecticut. That's where he actually passed away. He was an extraordinarily fastidious craftsman. He studied with Piston and all the guys at Harvard. He was a Harvard guy. With all of that American school of Harvardians, Harvarders, whatever they're called, Harvardniks. And he really was an extremely accomplished composer, but he wrote light music exclusively, and there are about 5 discs of it, if you include his musical Goldilocks. All of them have been recorded in an excellent edition on Naxos featuring Leonard Slatkin. But I really believe that when a composer is as fine a craftsman as Anderson was, there's no point in differentiating whether or not his music is serious or not serious, or light as opposed to heavy. Craftsmanship is craftsmanship. Great music is great music. We just did a talk about Webern. He can play. People who like Webern because he's atonal will basically say, or avant-garde, will say, oh my God, he expresses in 20 seconds what Mahler puts into 45 minutes, or composer X puts into 50 minutes, or what Verdi puts into an entire opera. I mean, statements like that are just bullshit. We know they're bullshit, but great music is great music, and its length is not really important. What matters is whether form and content go together. Webern's music is great because his form and his content are invariably very well aligned. And so it is with Leroy Anderson. He's a wonderful, wonderful composer of polished gem-like miniatures. He was very, very fastidious. He didn't write all that many, and the ones he released and decided to release are imperishable gems of the repertoire. Some of them also happen to be just unbelievably popular, and deservedly so, especially his Christmas sleigh ride. You know that one, right? It goes yum bum 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 ba ba da dum bum bum ba da dum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 dum ba da da dum ba. You know which one I mean, right? But the Typewriter is the one we're doing. The Typewriter is an avant-garde masterpiece because it is a miniature concerto, 1 minute and 48 seconds long, for typewriter and orchestra. And it uses all of the multifarious resources of the manual typewriter, which the younger among you may not even know existed. I mean, I learned to type on one of those suckers, and that's how my life typing began. They were wonderful. First of all, they did make a very musical and appealing sound. Second of all, there were 3 different sounds. There was the sound of the keys striking the paper. Individual keys. We're not talking about those little balls in the IBM Selectric things. Actual keys. Then there was the carriage return lever, which went like that when you were done with a line. And then there was the bell. The bell went off and told you had, I think, 5, maybe 10 characters left in a line. And so you had, when the bell went off, you went shtuk, and you could set the bell for to go off at different places on the page if you were like indenting or something. And you could also, there was usually a button that actually allowed you to make the bell ding. Don't ask me why you had to do that, but you could. The older models had an actual bell key, so you could go ding when you needed it to. It was just a great device. Of course, you had to deal with ribbons and ink and whatnot, but that doesn't matter. They were wonderful machines and very musical at their very nature as percussive instruments. And Anderson wrote this fantastic piece for typewriter and orchestra. And the typewriter plays almost all the way through. And it's difficult. It's rhythmically tricky, but you have to know whether you're hitting a key or the carriage return or the bell thing. And sometimes it's quite syncopated, and it moves at a very, very zippy pace, a very quick pace. And the piece actually has extreme formal sophistication. It is a perfect classical rondo in shape. That is, it is A-B-A-C-A. That is the structure. And you may note that the first B section has a certain Tchaikovsky balletic feel to it. I mean, Anderson knew his classics, obviously, and there are moments where you do have that feeling of the dance as well. It's just an amazing miniature masterpiece, and nobody gives this music any credit. But think about it: how many people were using typewriters as solo instruments? There's a typewriter in the Schulhoff Concerto for Piano and Small Orchestra, which is also extraordinarily wonderful. I think he uses a typewriter. I mean, it's what it sounds like at all the performances I've ever heard. I don't have the score, so I can't say for sure. But here I know it's a typewriter. And the Utah Symphony and a Bravanel on Vanguard put together this classic, absolutely classic, Leroy Anderson collection. It's still available, or you can get the big collection on 5 CDs on Naxos with Slatkin, which is still available. There are many Leroy Anderson recordings. He did a whole bunch of his own stuff. It was released last on MCA, but seems to have disappeared. Originally Decca. These are popular pieces, but it's amazing how, we still know the most popular ones, and some of you may recognize a lot of the tunes here without knowing who the composer was, again. But I want to give credit to the guy who wrote the music, and I want to put the name to the sound, the name of the composer to the sound of the music. So here, without further ado, is one of the great, I mean truly great, miniature masterpieces in all of 20th century music by anybody of any period and any style of any type. Leroy Anderson's The Typewriter. Isn't that just fantastic? What a clever, joyful, fantastic piece of writing. It has so much intelligence and craftsmanship and melodic appeal. And I can't even begin to tell you how much fine music is in this piece, and that he achieves that with the typewriter as a musical instrument is really extraordinary. And I have to say, if you're looking for manual typewriters, the best place to get them is like in thrift shops and places like that, because you can get them at a reasonable price. They're still available, but they're quite expensive. I was looking them up on Amazon before doing this talk. They're about $240 a pop, and you don't know that the ones that they sell today are going to be musically appropriate. You don't, first of all, you can't really tell when the bell's going to go off, and they don't look like they're as solidly constructed. You're better off getting one of those old cast iron tanks, preferably in the suitcase that it originally came in. But get it, go listen to your old Leroy Anderson or Leroy, I don't know, who cares, Leroy Anderson records, if you have them. Go listen to them. You probably haven't heard them in quite a while. And if you haven't heard them, download a Leroy Anderson, collection for your digital media thing, or grab a CD. You should have these. I play these actually fairly frequently, simply because they're just a joy. You put them on. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You pay attention to them because they're wonderful. I'm not saying you ignore them. It's not background music, but it has such flavor, such character. It's music that is so of its time and place, and so beautifully written. So here you go, a total miniature masterpiece. Anderson's The Typewriter. Keep on listening, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care.